Thanks for joining me for another one of our Bible stories. It's good to be here. It is great to be here, and I'm so happy to be back here with you, sharing our Bible story from our Spark Bible. This week, our story is kind of a big story. But before we get started, let's invite God, our Creator, to be with us. Jesus, His Son, and lastly, we'll invite the Holy Spirit. Now, normally I would have our handheld cross, but today I brought this extra large cross because this is a big story. It has big words and it has even bigger meaning. And so I thought I'd bring this cross to symbolize the story and the importance of it. So I want you to get comfortable where you are and let's start our story. But before we do that, I want to remind you that each week I also put a lesson online. So you can print this off or look at it on your computer and go over it with your family. So you can read the story with your parents, and on it has some things to talk about, some things to do, and a prayer that I want you to do with your family. So let's get started. Our story is called the Beatitudes. Now Jesus was coming into town. Many people heard about Jesus coming into town, and so they all started to gather. Jesus decided to climb up a hillside where they could see him and hear him. This would later be called the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus starts to speak. He starts to talk about people who are hopeless, for they are blessed, because God will give them heaven. Sad people are blessed, because God will help them to feel better. People who don't have many things, they too are blessed, because God will give everything they need. People who want to follow God's way are blessed because God will help them. People who treat others with kindness, they too are blessed because God will return that kindness to them. What's the one word you hear over and over? That's right, blessed. This story is all about blessings. In fact, next week we'll finish the story. But I have a video for you to watch. I want you to count the number of times they say the word blessed. And next week we'll reconnect and see how many times you count that word in our story. You see, when Jesus talks about being blessed, people who are sad or hopeless, it's not about their circumstances. Jesus wants us to understand it's about our attitude of faith. You see, no matter what we go through in life, we too can be blessed as long as we have an attitude of faith. Before we leave today, I want you to know that you too are a blessing, and for you and your family to go and be blessed this week. Think about all the ways that you are blessed. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next week as we conclude our story of the Beatitudes. In the meantime, enjoy the video, and God bless you.
God's story, the Sermon on the Mount. So part of God's story is about a sermon Jesus gave on the side of a mountain and what he did afterwards. And it goes like this. One day, when Jesus saw crowds gathering to hear him teach or see him do miracles, he went to the side of a mountain. It was near the Sea of Galilee, across from a place called Capernaum. From there, he gave a message all about God's kingdom and his love. We call this message the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus started by explaining who would get blessings or favor from God. He said the most blessed people are those who are poor, sad, or humble. He said God shows favor to people who are just or treat others fairly, and people who are merciful or show love to those who don't deserve it. He said the people who are pure, who bring peace, or who get hurt for doing right will be rewarded for their actions in heaven. In other words, the people who love others, even when it makes them seem weak or unimportant on earth, are like heroes in God's kingdom. Anyway, Jesus went on to explain that when we believe in and follow him, it's our job to show everyone else who he is by loving them. That means going out of our way not only to comfort and help our friends, but also forgive people who hurt us, love our enemies, and give to people in need. The thing is, Jesus didn't just talk about love, he showed it all the time. In fact, right after giving this sermon, Jesus spent the rest of the day helping everyone he met.